It's all about the politicians and the money movers. They control it all, sir. Expertise means nothing. All right, stand by. Here we go.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Now, we didn't get into any of that because, again, when we spoke yesterday, it was more, hey, this is what I think has happened. I don't really know. Let's find out what went on. So I haven't spoken back to him since then because he and I both were in the same mindset of just trying to find out what really happened.
One of Frank Martin's key signees for the USC basketball team in hot water, that would be James Thompson out of Parkview Baptist in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, arrested, charged with aggravated battery and domestic abuse incident with his girlfriend, allegedly some physical altercation happening there, and that was his high school coach at Parkview, Don Green, who has talked with USC assistant Perry Clark. No decision on what's going to happen next. They are gathering facts. You'll hear more from Mr. Don Green coming up later in the program. Want to welcome you into Sports Talk. We have got a great show for you here tonight. No corn. That's not why I say it's a great show. It's going to be a great show despite the fact that we don't have the whole team together. Corn with the night off. Hopefully he was able to get some golf in before this nasty weather came through. At least it's rolling through the Midlands now. Hopefully you're safe and dry wherever you are and going to get wherever you need to go safely out there as these summer storms that we're used to this time of the year definitely affecting the things around the Midlands and around the state. Tom Hayes is in the house. Pro, hope you're doing outstanding tonight.
Oh, yes. After navigating the wet stuff getting here late this afternoon, in case anybody visits Columbia, if there's any sort of precipitation in the air, I will tell you that Midlands area citizens love to ride brakes. Just a friendly warning to you.
Yeah, if it rains, go ahead and get ready to see a lot of brake lights, whether it's necessary or not. Okay, tonight, again, jam-packed show, lots of things to discuss. We'll have time for your phone calls. We will have time to get to some email. Always interact with us on Twitter, at SportsTalkSC. Follow along there. Great place to keep up with what we're keeping up with, and we have been keeping up with a lot. We'll get into the details of this story with James Thompson. Really, I think you can make a case to Jewel of Frank Martin's incoming class in terms of plucking him out of Louisiana and all of his talents, but he's got bigger things to worry about with this issue back in Louisiana. You always say there's two sides to these stories, and there are people instantly, when you read the details, it doesn't look good for James Thompson, but you'll hear his coach and you'll understand that there is another side to the story. Now, whether it's enough or whether it's going to change things for James Thompson and maybe keep his future intact at South Carolina, that remains to be seen. More coming out with Clemson baseball coach Jack Leggett. We had him on last night where he talked at length about the future and his plans and what he wants to do. Well, Dan Radakovich is still talking and very publicly stating what is expected of Jack Leggett. We'll go through the four expectations, four things laid out, very specific obligations laid out by Dan Radakovich. That coming up, recruiting, a commitment for Clemson, and more here on Sports Talk.
Gotcha.
Right. Well, I have not spoken to any. Well, no, I spoke to Coach Clark yesterday,
Mhm.
but it was more in effect.
So when did Corn get him? Nice. Stand by, stand by.
The Clemson football team has picked up a commitment. USC baseball will get a key player back for one more year. Athlon Sports has shared its opinions on the USC and Clemson football team. We have all of those stories right around the corner, including more on the James Thompson arrest, a USC basketball signee in trouble in Louisiana. The phone number, 800-956-7266. You can reach us toll free if you have a question, a comment, a concern, a complaint. We take it all on here. At Sports Talk SC is the Twitter feed. Sports Talk Radio Network is where you find us on Facebook, if that is your thing. And, of course, sportstalksc.com is our website that is updated periodically throughout the day and the night, each and every day and night of the year, weekends, holidays. It doesn't matter if we have news. We make sure it gets there, whether we're on the air or not. Also on our website, a list of our many great affiliates all around the state if you're looking for us and traveling around, or if you want to click a link to listen to us live on the website, you can do that. Or if you're really brave and really savvy, tech savvy, you can go down to the bottom of the page and click on a picture of us, a video stream right there at the bottom of the page. Just scroll down to the bottom and voila, there it is. You'll see us and you can watch us and listen to us at the same time. So all of your senses are covered here on Sports Talk. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we will head up to Pinehurst. Bob Gillespie from the state newspaper is getting ready for the U.S. Open, which tees off tomorrow, so we'll get the latest on how Pinehurst #2 is looking. You know, they're going to do the men's U.S. Open this weekend, and next weekend at Pinehurst #2, the women are going to play. Kind of an interesting scenario that they're doing with the men and the women going back to back. So we'll get all the latest there. I want to jump back into this Parkview Baptist James Thompson story, the South Carolina signee, signed recently with the Gamecocks over schools like LSU and Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Oklahoma. So he is a big-time player. Now that's the basketball side of things. The other side of things with Mr. Thompson is the legal side of things. Arrested, he has been released on a $10,000 bond, charged with aggravated battery and domestic abuse. Now, he's got something going on with his girlfriend that apparently has been lingering for a while. On August 10th, 2013, according to a report, Thompson and his girlfriend had engaged in a very heated verbal dispute about her creating a new Instagram page. Pro, you know what Instagram is?
I have an idea.
It's a
Keep
social
going.
media app.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
It's a internet way of opening your curtains.
yeah. So back in August of last year, they got in an argument over her creating an Instagram page, and it eventually ended with him throwing her cell phone at her, and it struck her in the eye, causing a black eye. And then, according to the report, he allegedly kicked her while she was on the floor. This is what she told officers. Now, flash forward to earlier this month, June 4th, Thompson, according to the police report, punched the victim in the eye, slapped her in the face several times, and threw things at her again, causing pain and bruises to her chin, on her leg, her eye, into the back of her right thigh because of a comment on one of her Instagram photos, as she told officers, according to the report. So this Instagram is causing all sorts of problems here for Mr. Thompson and his girl. On Monday, the complainant submitted several photos of her injuries and completed a witness statement, but refused medical attention. Sheriff's officers later contacted Thompson, who's 19. He admitted to having thrown a phone at her face on August 10th of 2013, but denied touching her June 4th, 2014. during which he stated that was only a verbal altercation. Don Green is the head basketball coach at Parkview Baptist, and he has not talked to Thompson, or at least he had not talked to Thompson when we caught up with him. Korn caught up with him earlier today. He had talked with USC assistant Perry Clark, who was actively involved in landing Thompson. Let's let you listen in on the conversation between Korn and Don Green, Thompson's coach there in Baton Rouge.
Right. Well, I have not spoken to any. Well, no, I spoke to Coach Clark yesterday, but it was more in a fact-finding situation because I didn't really know what had happened either. I was just alerting him that something had occurred based on what I had heard. So we haven't spoken again since then because, again, we were all trying to get facts of what actually happened.
Where do things stand with James right now? I mean, are these misdemeanor charges, or what kind of charges are they? Are they considered serious?
Well, as they are now, they're considered serious, but at the same time, whatever has gone on must have blown over because they were together the day before yesterday, I understand. So I'm not really certain what is going on because supposedly, as I read the article this morning, that something had occurred on June the 4th. Well, whatever happened on June 4th must not have been all that bad, whatever it was, because on June 5th, 6th through the 10th, they were together again. So, and that's what I'm saying. I have not spoken to James, so I don't know that side of this story.
Yeah. So this was a boyfriend, girlfriend, kind of a flare-up sort of thing?
Yeah.
It might have gotten out of hand?
Well, it could have. It is a boyfriend-girlfriend thing. This is not the first time that those two have kind of, got sideways with each other. But again, whatever it was that happened on the 4th, I don't understand what that was because ever since then, they've been together.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know what's up next for him as far as dealing with this situation? Does he face a court appearance, or do you know what's next?
Well, I don't know. Normally, yeah, you would face a court appearance, just to get the facts out from his side of the story because I don't think anybody's heard his side yet. And again, I have not spoken to him. In fact, I'm still trying to, get all the facts that what went on and that sort of thing. I know he's at home. I know that much.
Okay. And what's Coach Clark telling you about, South Carolina's position? I mean, are they still honoring the scholarship offer to him and all that?
No, he did not. We didn't get into any of that because, again, when we spoke yesterday, it was more, hey, this is what I think has happened. I don't really know. Let's find out what went on. So I haven't spoken back to him since then because he and I both were in the same mindset of just trying to find out what really happened.
All right, that's Don Green, head basketball coach at Parkview Baptist, and the former coach of James Thompson, who has since graduated from Parkview. So he obviously, we know, has a history with his girlfriend, according to his high school coach, and the police report that goes back to an incident all the way back in August of last year. Now, USC told the state newspaper via a statement, "We are aware of the serious charges regarding James Thompson and are gathering more information. We will have no further comment at this time." End of quote there from USC. So it's a wait-and-see moment, which is what you have to do in these circumstances because it's really easy to let emotion tell you you need to cut ties with this guy. And that may, in fact, be what ends up happening. That may, in fact, be what needs to happen here, Pro. But, it's one of those deals, and you hear the coach saying, well, they're hanging out again right now. You don't know what's going on, and they'll have to get to the bottom of this, but it certainly does not look good.
No, I mean, you want to be fair to the young man because he has signed a letter of intent. You agreed to the letter of intent. He expects to have a scholarship, but then again, once you sign those papers, you got to conduct yourselves accordingly as a representative of the university, even though you have not yet set foot on the campus. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. You think about things. They're hanging out again doesn't mean anything to me because we've seen situations of abuse where the partner stays with the boyfriend or girlfriend during that period, but again, she's taking photos, so apparently she's taking some steps to see how this situation is controlled. So it'll be interesting right now. I would think the knee-jerk reaction of many people is to cut the ties
Right.
now, or you want to see how things are done. It may be a case where they don't want to be separated that distance from Columbia to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We don't know that. Maybe that comes out as the investigation continues.
We're going to hit a break. We'll jump to some phone calls on the other side. Let you chime in. Also, some good news coming down the pike for Gamecock baseball coach Chad Holbrook. We'll tell you about that.
All right, stand by.
Let's head to John in Greenville. Take our first call of the night, 800-956-7266, if you want to chime in as well. John, how are you doing?
Doing fine. How y'all doing tonight?
Very well, very well.
I'm just wanting to call in and comment. Here we go again. Why is it Carolina recruits so many criminals, and they'll take them in, they pat them on the back and say, come on, guys. There's no punishment whatsoever from Carolina. Whereas Clemson punishes all their players. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, what other criminals are you referring to that have been recruited?
Well, Garcia got drunk about 6 times, never got a pat on the hand every time when he was down there.
A lot of those were not criminal offenses.
Yeah, that's not a criminal offense to get drunk. Oh, you're hanging up now.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, South Carolina hasn't done anything to this guy because he's not on campus. He hasn't stepped foot on campus yet. He just graduated high school, I would imagine, in the past week or so. And they've got a decision to make here, and it's not uncommon. When you recruit a guy, if they get into trouble before they arrive onto campus, they don't end up making it to campus,
exactly.
Or you make another decision, they go to junior college. I don't think that South Carolina has a reputation for recruiting guys like this. I can't think of anybody else on their basketball team that has been arrested or even sniffed legal trouble recently. Now, maybe I'm forgetting somebody, Pro. Maybe if I am.
I don't.
Under the Frank Martin era, even back to Darren Horn. I mean, we can say a million things about Darren Horn and his program and its lack of success, but you really can't knock him for graduating players and keeping his guys their nose clean. Now, they left for various reasons, but it wasn't for legal reasons. Now, we go into the football thing. stuff happens, and if you start casting stones back and forth, I'm not going to turn it into that. I'm not going to turn it into now a Gamecock fan's going to call and start pointing out situations that happened at Clemson with males and females, and it happens everywhere. What you do is you have to deal with it head on.
Well, I'd venture to think that probably some reporters in Columbia have been let go because they've turned on the police scanner and they can't find anything. I mean, the football has been relatively quiet the last 3 years under Spurrier.
And Georgia, they are notorious for having off-season problems. It's kind of a joke. We all joke about it and say Georgia's going to have guys suspended for the first few games. Steve Spurrier has made jokes about it. Dabo Swinney hasn't made jokes about it, but they kind of go back and forth knowing that if you play Georgia early, that's the time to play them because they're going to have guys that probably are suspended key guys. Now, I don't think Mark Richt runs a renegade program by any stretch. I think Mark Richt is a first-class guy, does things the right way. Now, we could question the evaluation process, why so many of these guys are getting into trouble, but, you're dealing with 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. It's not an exact science. It is absolutely not an exact science. Now, obviously that's a rival of USC fan, that wants to take a pot shot. But nothing that he said is based on fact. Nothing that he said is based on fact there. That's probably why he hung up when he realized that he didn't have anything. Either that or maybe he had to go do a drive-by on another show. Okay, Bob Gillespie from Pinehurst coming up.
To my Rolando Madoff. I'm a man. I was a bouncer.
natural. That's normal. That's why our job is at the end of the day to zoom in and name 23 guys that they are up to the
Ole, ole, ole.
World Cup.
More phone calls and a lot of other information to pass along to you on the recruiting front, on the news front, so stick around. You don't want to miss out. We want to welcome in our first guest of the night, Bob Gillespie from the state newspaper, who has made the trek up to Pinehurst, getting ready for the U.S. Open, which tees off tomorrow morning on number 2. Bob, hope you're doing well.
I am, T-Mac. Thanks for calling.
Oh, our pleasure to have you on. Appreciate you joining us. And, well, first of all, it's dumping here in the Midlands right now. What is your weather situation like there, and what's it supposed to do between now and the start of the first round tomorrow?
Well, there's calls for rain. Don't know that they've specified when it will come. I know I'm staying, as a lot of people are, in Fayetteville, which is kind of the closest city of any size where you can find places to stay. And as I was driving from Pinehurst to Fayetteville, I ran into a pretty fierce rainstorm with a lot of high winds and stuff. I don't know what it did on the golf course. While I was at the golf course, it was, typical North Carolina weather, kind of hot and kind of humid and that sort of thing. But there is some question as to whether they'll, get rain and whether it will interrupt play this week. As far as the women's tournament is concerned, I haven't heard about that.
Yeah, and they've got a few factors with the rain, not only delaying the tournament or interfering with it, but those greens at Pinehurst, number 2, legendary for their difficulty. I'm sure the players wouldn't mind a little rain between now and tomorrow to maybe soften them up just a tad.
Oh, absolutely. As you say, the greens those are the defense of Pinehurst, because with the renovations that Bill Coore and Ben Crenshaw did in the last few years, they actually have wider fairways than they did in the previous incarnation. But then you go to the edge of the fairways, and it's the sandy natural areas with wiregrass and pine cones and weeds and whatever else. So driving the ball is probably, there's always the danger of hitting it through the fairway and into one of these areas and ending up behind something that you can't get out of. But by and large, it's a whole different philosophy of an Open than usual. But the second shot, the approach shots into the greens, will be the issue. The greens, as you said, not only are they fast, but they have what they call the turtleback mounds, where if you hit a ball and it gets on the back or one place and it starts rolling towards the edge, don't count on it stopping, because it will not until it ends up in one of the collection areas.
Well, Bob, thinking about it, you look at Pinehurst and the uniqueness of this course. Have you read anything, or have you talked to anyone there that Ben Crenshaw was trying to capture maybe some aspects of the uniqueness of some of the courses they see overseas in the British Open?
Well, there's some of that, but now, of course, to go back to the origins of Pinehurst number 2, especially with Donald Ross, who was a Scot, who was raised on golf courses in Dornoch, Scotland. So there's always going to be that element. That was kind of the philosophy that he espoused when he was building these courses back in the early 1900s. What they've actually done was not quite go back that far. What they've been trying to do with the renovation, or tried to do with the renovation, I should say, is go back to the way it was when Ross built it originally. Because essentially, when the Open was here in 1999, again in 2005, and you had these sort of carved fairways amidst the thick, nasty rough, the rough had essentially been allowed to grow over years and years out. There was a group called, Diamond Head maybe, that bought the course, and they just they made it basically into any other golf course, where, here's your fairway, here's your rough, and during an Open, your rough is, anywhere from 2 to 6 inches thick, and have fun with it and bring your sandwich. This golf course now is set up to play more the way that Ross intended, which, to go back to what you said, is essentially back to his Scottish roots that he brought to America.
So in fact, thinking about it just on first glance, I understand they have a very early tee time. In your opinion, looking at this course, advantage to tee off early or advantage to tee off when the sun is out later on?
Probably, if I had to just wager a guess, I'd say the former. You go out a little early, maybe there's a little more moisture in the greens, maybe they're holding a little better, because shots are going to have to be dang gum precise into these greens. There are a number of those holes where they'll put the pin in a certain spot, and basically all you want to do is hit it to the middle of the green and try to two-putt and get out of there and move on to something better. Because of that, it remains to be seen. Again, if we get rain, then the whole thing changes a little bit. The greens will still be difficult, but they won't be as difficult, if only because they'll be better able to spin the ball and position the ball on the green where they want to.
Bob Gillespie on with us. He's at Pinehurst getting ready to cover the U.S. Open that tees off tomorrow morning. This is always a tough tournament. Anytime you talk about a major, now that Tiger Woods isn't on top of his game and now not even in the game anymore, it's hard to pick a winner. But who are some guys that you have your eye on that you think have an excellent chance to win this thing, and the best chance for a local that we're covering?
Okay, well, first off, the story, and has been the story pretty much ever since last year when he won the British Open, is Phil Mickelson. He's finished second here before to Payne Stewart in 1999. That was the first of his record 6 runner-up finishes in Opens. And this is kind of his albatross. He should have won at Winged Foot. He should have won at Shinnecock. He could have won last year at Marion. He didn't. And he's 43 years old. He'll turn 44 on Monday. And, he's running out of time. By the same token, this is the kind of course that, Phil is a little bit more unorthodox from a lot of guys. Yes, you've got to be conservative at certain times, but you also got to know when you can gamble. And as we know, Phil is kind of the ultimate gambler. Just the fact that it's 6 runners up, and this is where the streak of runner-up finishes started, Phil will be the odds-on favorite, if only a sentimental favorite. People would love to see Phil win this. That'll give him his 4th major. He'll have the career Grand Slam. And it is, like I said, it is a golf course that I think he can play well. Now, as you probably know, he has kind of struggled this year. It's just really, he's off to the worst start probably since he was a rookie on the tour. Has not won a tournament, hasn't really challenged in many tournaments this year. But, Phil's the kind of guy that one weekend he could turn it around. Like I said, now that's the obvious one. There's a lot of interest in Bubba Watson now since he won the Masters this year. And again, the same point of, there really are no restrictions to driving the ball, and Bubba is just impossibly long, and not as much concerned about running into the thick rough and hacking it out. And he's very creative with his short game too. Whether his putting will be able to handle those greens, that's a good question. Really not sure about that. Those are the 2 that a lot of people like. I think Matt Kuchar, who has played really well, he played well at the Masters this year. He's a very precise player. He's really more of a traditional U.S. Open type of winner because of that. How that will play out as far as this tournament is concerned, we don't know. But, he is kind of, once you get past the 2 obvious ones, he's kind of my favorite to be there on Sunday. And then as far as the locals go, of course, Dustin Johnson, same thing, very long off the tee like Bubba. But whether Dustin has the patience or not, that's always the question with him. Whether he can kind of keep his focus and not make a glaring error that takes him out of it. Of course, you can say the same thing about Mickelson in that regard. So I tell you, Bill Haas could be interesting to watch. He hasn't really done a lot this year. He's been in contention a couple of times, but hasn't won anything. And Bill is, again, he's just kind of a methodical, here's how I play. He's plenty long. And, he grew up in he went to school at Wake Forest, so he kind of knows, if not Pinehurst number 2 specifically, he knows that type of golf, that kind of Donald Ross golf. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him really, probably maybe more so than Dustin.
Bob, we appreciate it. Have a great night, and we might catch up with you again between now and the end of the week to see how things are rolling around there on number 2.
Okay, K-Mac. Well, you've got my phone number, and I'll send you a billing sheet, okay?
Absolutely, yes. Checks in the mail. Bob Gillespie, keeping up with everything that's happening there at Pinehurst as a U.S. Open. I love Pine. It's one of my favorite locations for the U.S. Open, Pinehurst.
Stand by.
Mike Morgan joining us now for our Braves report. Mike, they found the offense last night. Going to Coors Field tends to do that for teams. They scored 13. They did almost all of them, too. They gave up 10, but the Braves pull out a high-scoring win. We haven't seen any of that this season.
Not much, that's for sure. Very bizarre inning when you have 10 runs scored in the first inning. It's the most runs the Braves have scored in the first inning in quite some time. And really, Coors Field obviously was a factor, but I think even more so than that, you had terrible starting pitching from both guys. Colorado put a guy out there that just didn't look like he was ready for the big leagues. They've got a couple of those guys right now. And for Mike Minor, Mike, the thing about Coors Field is it's not just that the thin air helps the ball travel farther and therefore creating more home runs, but it really affects a pitcher in that the breaking ball just does not bite the way it normally does. And Minor's not an overpowering guy, relies on that type of movement on his pitches, was not getting it, and just looked frazzled from the first batter on. I've never seen Mike Minor look so uncomposed on the mound. They kept him out there as long as they possibly could, but in the end, they had to go ahead and take him out, leave it up to the bullpen, which wasn't exactly great either, other than Craig Kimbrell, who locked it down with another strikeout save in the ninth inning.
Julio Teheran tonight, because you talked about the curveball not having as much bite, much movement in the thin air. How does he change his pitching strategy, pitching in this ballpark, or does he change his strategy?
Well, see, Teheran's a guy that really doesn't have to, much like Craig Kimbrell didn't have to when he got into the ninth inning, because Teheran really leads by the fastball, and he can blow the fastball by you even when you know it's coming, as long as he locates. Now, he has developed a good curveball to complement it. He's always had a good changeup. So those two pitches, the fastball and the changeup, really aren't affected much. It's if you are a guy that relies heavily on sliders and curveballs, you're going to notice real quickly in that ballpark that you're not going to have the same stuff. So I think Teheran will fare much better tonight because of those factors.
Justin Upton back in the lineup tonight. I know that is good news for the Braves.
Well, it is. I mean, look, Justin Upton has not been perfect since he got here a year ago, but he's been the second most consistent guy. You might even make an argument the most consistent guy, because Freeman's been slumping a little bit, even though he hit a home run last night. So, when you're able to kind of couple Freeman in the 3-hole, Gaddis fourth, and Justin Upton fifth, this lineup really works best with those three guys stacked in the middle. Now, what you do at the top and at the bottom, that's a whole other story. There's been some issues there. It's very encouraging to see Jason Hayward come around, even though I still don't like him in the leadoff spot. The bottom line is he is hitting the baseball better, and he is doing things to help his team win ball games right now. But Upton, Freeman, and Gaddis, those are your run producers for the most part on this team.
Mike, you've heard the stories about especially right-handed hitters. They go into Fenway Park, they salivate when they see the green monster, and then they start to swing for the fences. And then they leave Fenway, and then something happens to their swing. Guys like Upton, Justin that is, and Gaddis, psychologically, any after effect after trying to, I guess, unbutton their shirts and swing as hard as they can in Coors Field that may kind of hurt their swing after they get out of Coors Field?
Well, I've heard that theory before. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong. Mine just happens to be the opposite. I think because the ball carries so well there, that I think guys do not unbutton the shirt. I think they actually have a smoother swing. It's kind of like if you club up in the game of golf, you're not going to try and kill it as much because that the iron's going to do the work for you. Well, in this case, the ballpark is going to give you that extra distance. You don't have to swing harder. You can swing lighter, and the ball's still going to travel farther. So I think that psychologically helps a lot of hitters at Coors Field as well.
Mike, we appreciate it. We'll catch up with you tomorrow night.
Okay, guys.
Mike Morgan and our Braves report brought to you by Plyler's Properties. Call for the best construction in South Carolina. David standing by, 600-6031. That's 803-600-6031. The Braves and Rockies, Atlanta trying to continue that nice streak after a little bit of a hiccup at home over the weekend, or actually on the road against Arizona, now in Denver, getting things going again.
Now, the one thing I don't know is I know they got permission from Major League Baseball a few years ago. I don't even know if they're still doing that experiment, but remember when they said the ball carries too much in Coors Field, they have to do something. And remember, they had permission to put put the baseballs in the humidifier before the game, so it's to kind of slow them down a little bit. I don't know if they still do that in Coors Field, but I thought that was very interesting that they got permission to do that a few years ago.
We'll be back with a lot more. I want to pass along a recruiting note and good news for the USC baseball team coming right up. USC first baseman Kyle Martin told the Anaheim Angels, I still call them the Anaheim Angels, the whole Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, that's still goofy. They drafted him in the 20th round, and that wasn't good enough for him. He's going to return to South Carolina, and that's big for Chad Holbrook and the Gamecocks. He led them with a .336 batting average last season. He issued a statement saying, I love this university, I love this baseball program, and I'm just not ready to leave all that this great place provides me. This was not an easy decision, and I appreciate the Angels drafting me. However, after talking it over with my family, Coach Holbrook, and the staff, and Coach Tanner, I decided that I want to come back and help lead the 2015 team. Holbrook said they are thrilled to have Kyle back for another year, end of quote. And Holbrook and Martin will talk to reporters tomorrow, and we'll pass those comments along to you. So, the Gamecocks got hit hard in terms of their juniors, not unexpectedly hard, because we knew Joey Pancake and Grayson Griner and Joel Seddon and Tanner Inglis were all going pro, and of course Evan Beal went. But this is a nice piece to have in the middle of your lineup returning next season, so you can plug some other guys around him. You hope to get Max Schrock back healthy, and then your 3-4 hitters look pretty good. Then you've got to plug some other guys around them.
Well, he's high on his recruiting class, and let's face it, part of the draw of the recruiting class is probably Holbrook told him, well, so-and-so and so-and-so are probably going to be gone. So it's almost a catch-22 situation. You'd love to have the guys come back, but no, you drew in some recruits because they knew they were going to leave. Now, Kyle Martin, obviously, on first glance, he's giving up a lot of leverage because, let's face it, when you're a junior and you have the option of coming back your senior year and you negotiate, you always have that leverage. Well, I'll come back if I don't get what I want. But, after you're a senior, they know there's no place to go but to them. It'd be interesting to see if he blows it up next season, if he gets a nice little tidy signing bonus, whoever he signs with.
It's always a tough decision. You go back to Nick Ebert, another Gamecock first baseman, a few years ago as a junior, was selected in the I think at the 10th or 11th round. I don't remember the exact round. Don't hold me to that, but he was drafted. He decided to come back to school, and this guy, Christian Walker, ended up supplanting him at first base by the end of the season. Ebert was on a College World Series winning team, but was not a starter at the end of the year. Did not get drafted in the next draft, and he had turned down a six-figure signing bonus, about $100,000. And those are the stories you just don't know. I mean,
Right.
but you do what's best for you. And playing college baseball is not that bad. I've talked to a lot of guys that played minor league baseball and played college baseball, and I said, look, I'll take college baseball any day. The travel's better, the equipment's better, the meals are better. It's just a better deal all the way around. More baseball talk coming up. 4 changes Jack Leggett has to make to his program, according to Dan Radakovich. We'll pass that along to you in hour number 2. And we've got some recruiting notes, even though Corn's not here.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornblut, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
You know, it never fails. Kornblut takes a night off, goes on vacation, and somebody commits. There's always a piece of recruiting news when Kornblut is out of the office, and that was the case again today. Clemson snatching a commitment for 2016. We're skipping over 2015 with our commitments tonight. We've got a 2016 commitment. A tight end, J.C. Chalk, giving a commitment to the Tigers. He's from Argyle, Texas, 6'4", 225 pounds. He has some pretty good lineage. He is the grandson of former Alabama and Texas A&M head football coach Gene Stallings, who, of course, coached Dabo Swinney when he was at Alabama, walk-on wide receiver there for Gene Stallings. And he had some other offers on the table. Did Chalk, Arizona State, Colorado State, Duke, and Texas A&M was also showing some interest. So the Tigers pick up a commitment there. We'll tell you more about him and drop other recruiting nuggets to you coming up later on before we say goodbye. Another piece of bizarre news in college football. This one, it's just a head-scratcher, and maybe more stuff will come out about this, or maybe it won't. But Joker Phillips, you might remember him. He was an assistant for a Heartbeat at South Carolina under Lou Holtz. Then he went to Kentucky, was an assistant there, was a head coach at Kentucky before he was fired.
His alma mater,
yeah,
Kentucky.
And he's been down at Florida as a wide receivers coach and one of their big recruiters. He was a notorious recruiter with the social media presence and the pictures he would make come play for the Joker with the Gators. He stepped down, just out of the blue, stepped down. Chris Leak, former quarterback at Florida, national champion winner with Tim Tebow, is going to take over that job. He was previously, I believe, a graduate assistant before taking over that role. And according to reports, Phillips was out working the camp today at Florida with the campers, and by the end of the day, he steps down. He did make a statement. I'm thankful for the opportunity that the University of Florida and Will Muschamp provided to me and my family, but at this time, I've decided to step down from my position on the UF coaching staff for personal reasons. Added Muschamp, I appreciate Joker's contributions to our program and wish him and his wife, Leslie, nothing but the best in the future.
Ooh. Well, you know, it's interesting. When you look at this down the road, we don't know how good of an assistant coach Chris Leak will be. He's still a young guy. He moves up from a graduate assistant's role. But let's face it, Florida has had a presence in the North Carolina area historically. That's where Chris Leak came from Charlotte. So watch now the presence of the Gators kind of infiltrating into North Carolina and what that does to recruiting landscape, but not only the coaching staffs at North Carolina and NC State, Duke, and Wake Forest, but of course Clemson and South Carolina has gotten prize recruits out of there as well.
It's either going to come back together for Florida this year, or it's all going to come apart. Yeah. Will Muschamp hanging in there by a thread. These aren't the stories that are, they don't look good on the surface, but there's always more to it than meets the eye, of course.
U.S. Soccer's March to Brazil is presented by El Jimador.
The sun powers life. And now it powers our latest innovation in more efficient cooling and heating. Introducing the world's only solar-powered home energy system, which can cut your heating and cooling bills in half. Call now to get up to $1,700 back or special financing on select Lennox home comfort systems. Offer ends June 13th. Plus, download our free Lennox mobile app with an energy savings calculator. Lennox, innovation never felt so good.
You don't compromise, and you're never willing to settle. So why are you wearing glasses with just any progressive lenses? See the difference with Verilux, the only progressive lens brand with lenses designed using wave technology. Enjoy smooth transitions and sharp vision at any distance. See your eye care professional about Verilux, the #1 progressive lens brand. Ask for Verilux. Never compromise your vision.
Now save $30 on Verilux when you combine with Crizal and Transitions lenses.
It's not what you do that kills you. It's what you don't do. Bill Bell Tequila.
From the very start, I wanted FitCore to be different. If you come to me, it's because you want to do what I do, because I don't do what other people do. It's kind of like creating a brand for myself.
Your business is unique. Your marketing should be too. With Vistaprint, it will be. Put your personal touch on 500 business cards starting at just $9.99. Just enter promo code TV500 at Vistaprint.com.
Stay true to yourself. You can do this how you want to do it, and somebody else is going to think that's awesome and want to do it that way too.
Vistaprint.com.
It doesn't take much to be happy. When you enjoy the simplest and truest things, asking for nothing more than what you've got. Look at your swimming pools. They'll never be enough. Like your fancy watches and your big cars, one day you realize that what matters is not the size of your car. It's the size of your yacht.
Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a room. This is a view you have to leave the couch to believe.
Seize the summer with up to 40% off hotels from Travelocity.
Go and smell the roses.
Leonard shoots and hits. Oh, Danny Green from downtown.
After a record-setting start, San Antonio never looked back.
The Spurs with a resounding road win here in Miami.
Now the champs must respond.
Take the challenge. Is it easy? No. We're in the finals.
James fires a three. It's good. LeBron James. Spurs. The NBA Finals. Game 4 tomorrow at 9 Eastern on ABC.
You have a call here in like 10 minutes, right? With your other coaches? Or do you just want to go and do a quick run through really fast?
Oh, yeah.
Whatever you want.
We're done. 3 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. We've sent some of these pants
Yeah, I
to you
have.
before.
I
And
have,
so,
I have this one.
okay.
I have this one. I
Have you had
this
the gray
one,
yet?
and no, so this
Okay.
one I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Polo is self-explanatory.
No need for me with red.
So-
So same goes, Pete, for shoes.
No red
No
shoes.
red shoes for me. So any red shoes off, the red polo too. Yeah.
Done.
So I would wear those ones.
Or these ones?
And these ones too, yeah.
But that's it, really. Like I said, I just wanted to get you squared away and actually physically see the samples before you wear it.
Pete,
So,
thanks so much. I appreciate
All right,
it.
stand by,
no
guys.
problem. Glad.
Dan Radakovich getting into some major details about changes, specific changes for them specifically that he's outlined for Jack Leggett, which he is sharing publicly. Aaron Brenner, the Charleston Post and Courier, has that posted, and we're going to go over those for you in just a moment. Also, we're going to jump into your phone calls, but first, if you want more out of your education, check out Palmetto College. Palmetto College offers the quality of a four-year education online. To find out more, visit palmettocollege.sc.edu. With Palmetto College, your future has no limits. Before we get into this story by Aaron Brenner outlining the Dan Radakovich changes that he has required of Jack Leggett, we'll take a quick phone call. David is in Walterboro. Welcome in, David.
Good evening. I just have an observation. I know I was looking in the Post and Courier the other day. I want to talk about Carolina recruiting baseball. Said that all of their kids that they had signed, none of them were going to go pro. And I just noticed that the highest ranked one that we had signed was only like a 20th rounder.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like our recruiting has slipped. Am I missing something? Didn't we have one of the top recruiting classes in the nation not but 2 years ago? And we're worried about 20 round picks going pro. I mean, are we not recruiting better than that? I don't know. It's just an observation.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I haven't seen, the rankings will come out. Usually they do that after they see who actually signs and who goes anywhere. Now, you can go out in South Carolina, you can sign a bunch of guys that are going to get drafted in the first round, second round, third round. If they're going to get drafted in the first 10 rounds, you're not going to get them. I mean, that's slot money now. It's all slotted, so most of those kids that go in the first 10 rounds aren't going to be with you anyway. They feel pretty good about their class. We'll see how it shakes out. I treat baseball rankings like I do any other one, maybe even less so because baseball is such a crapshoot, and with the Major League Draft where guys can actually go pro after high school, it changes things. You know, the Gamecocks, when they brought in Reese Havens, Reese Havens and Justin Smoke before they had the slot money, those guys could have been, major money winners in the Major League Draft and opted to go to school. Those two guys, with all their talent, I think they were part of a top 2 or 3 ranked class, never sniffed Omaha. So it's all about having the right group of guys, and I don't think it's way too early to say if recruiting has slipped at all. I mean, they had a bunch of guys drafted off this team, the Pancakes and the Grinders and the Seddons, so it didn't slip there. We don't know how good these guys coming in are going to be yet. Let's let them step on campus and play a couple games, because in 3 years, those guys might be getting drafted in the first 10 rounds, and you'll say, hey, that recruiting was pretty good.
I think it's also interesting that time management is a key in any organization. And if you spend too much time recruiting those top guys you're never going to get into school, your recruiting class looks good, but then when they show up in the fall and go to class, wait a minute, where's so-and-so? Well, he's now playing ball and he's probably banking his signing bonus. So it's a catch-22 situation. I think Chad Holbrook knew he was going to lose a bunch of juniors in this class, and he had to make sure not only he got talented players, but players who are going to assure him that they're going to at least spend 3 years academically at the University of South Carolina.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying that it just seems like, most of the guys that were here that came in last year as freshmen, they came in with the idea that Tanner was going to be there, and he stepped down, and they'd already basically signed that class. So, no, that's not how it works.
I don't know if that's why they came because of Ray Tanner, but yeah, Ray Tanner's been out of the dugout now for 2 seasons. Now remember, Chad Holbrook was a recruiting coordinator. Chad Holbrook was at North Carolina and was a recruiting whiz there. He is known. He was named the top recruiter in college baseball when he was at North Carolina, and that's why Tanner scooped them up. And a lot of those guys that you've seen, Jackie Bradley Jr., Michael Roth, these are guys that Chad Holbrook went out and recruited. Grayson Griner, Joey Pancake, those are all guys that he went out and brought in. Whit Merrifield, these are Chad Holbrook recruits. So I don't think Chad Holbrook forgot how to recruit. I don't think you have to worry about that right now.
I'm not down on him, but how many guys have come to Carolina because Steve Spurrier is there?
I'm sure. And maybe some guys, when Ray Tanner stepped away, they decided they didn't want to go to South Carolina anymore. That may have happened. Now, I just don't think you could say enough of that has happened to where you go, boy, they're really hurting because Ray Tanner isn't there anymore. I don't think there's any evidence of that right now, and I don't believe that to be the case. Appreciate the phone call. Let's jump into this story. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it. I've kind of sat on it. We've had a lot of stuff going on, but I've been trying to wrap my brain around not only the what but the why of this story. And the what of this story is Dan Radakovich sitting down with Aaron Brenner, beat writer for the Charleston Post and Courier covering the Tigers, and a couple of the Clemson websites, probably the Clemson Insider and TigerNet, if I had to guess. He sat down and got into really detailed specifics on what changes he expects and has outlined for Jack Leggett. And we're going to go through those changes for you. And I'll just say my why is, why am I reading this on the radio right now? Why do we need to know about this? Shouldn't this have been handled and behind closed doors? Don't you? It's like that locker room. You keep things internal. It's great to get this access, and that's why I'm going to share it. I'm not saying why that I don't think it's relevant. It is, but I don't know if I'm Jack Leggett and I'm Dan Radakovich, what do you really gain by sharing these things with the public? And once you see what some of them are, you might understand a little bit more.
Well, the other thing is, what do you lose? If I have an ace up my sleeve, do I show it to you? Now, maybe you got other athletic directors looking at this list and say, oh, That's a good suggestion. I'll write that down. I'll write this down. So sometimes you keep things under hat because you don't want your opposition to know what you're doing.
Yeah, and again, remember, this is all what makes it even more why. We're talking about a guy that was inducted into the Hall of Fame last year, has been to the College World Series 6 times at Clemson, won 1,300 games in his career, but now, very publicly, his athletic director is questioning how he's doing things and saying this is how he's going to have to do it. We want some changes, and that's fine, and AD's entitled to do that. That's his boss. But when you start outlining them publicly, this is Dan Radakovich trying to appease those angry fans that have been calling him saying we want Leggett out. This is him trying to appease them while also keeping Jack Leggett in place. And now that's fine. But if I'm Jack Leggett, man, this is not sitting well with me. This wouldn't sit well with me. Anyway, here we go. Here's number 1, hiring sports psychologists. And I'm reading from Aaron Brenner's story, by the way, in the Post and Courier. PostandCourier.com. Radakovich's feedback indicated the baseball players are quite pleased with their physical preparation. Daniel Gossett and Matthew Crownover, the dueling aces of the staff in particular, were reverent of strength and conditioning coach Dennis Love's work in the weight room. However, Radakovich is less sure about the Tigers' mental strength. He suggested sports psychologists will be ushered in to help players with focus and relaxation. We want to make sure we're providing a good mental base, Radakovich said, to have their best game available when they're called on. This isn't new. There's been a lot of programs that have done this over time. Radakovich said Leggett has dabbled with improving mind games, but we want to re-energize and refocus that as we move forward. Okay, sports psychologist, that's fine. Lots of teams have them. He's right. A meeting of the minds, number 2. It won't be with former Leggett assistants at Vanderbilt, Tim Corbin, or Florida's Kevin O'Sullivan, but the Clemson coaches have been urged to match minds with another staff away from Doug Kingsmore to kick around philosophies. This from Radakovich. We want Jack and his staff to go out and visit another successful baseball program staff to share ideas. Jack and his staff have been successful. There's been some things that they've worked that have worked really well at our program for a number of years. That's why I say there's a sharing of ideas. He's not going somewhere and going to bring back everything and change it. Dabo Sweeney and the football coaches, of course, have done that. Lots of football coaches do it.
Well, let me turn that around. I believe other baseball staffs have visited Jack Leggett
well, yeah,
to
share ideas, and that's what he says. All right, so he wants them to go out and get some fresh ideas. So those are the first 2 things. We'll give you the next 2 and share some more thoughts on this on the other side of a very quick timeout.
Stand by.
All right, here are the final two of the four changes in the baseball program that Dan Radakovich has outlined to Jack Leggett and is now outlining to the media. He wants a four-man player council. He says Jack Leggett does a great job talking to individual players in informal conversations, but he wants some more formal conversations to take place. So he's going to set up one freshman representative, one sophomore representative, one junior representative, and one senior representative, combining for a four-player council who will meet formally with Leggett once per week minimum. That's what the suggestion was by Dan Radakovich to Jack Leggett, and he says a lot of different ideas can come forward, and he said they need to have that communication in a formal manner. And the fourth and final thing, Jack's image, and this is the one that is going to be a real interesting one to follow, according to Aaron Brenner, and I tend to agree with him. Leggett's very fiery persona. He has certainly, that's Jack Leggett. I mean, and I do think sometimes he gets himself into trouble with some of the things that he says and does during and after games. But for better or for worse, and he has tried to work on that, and he has softened. I can tell you, somebody that's covered him for the better part of the past 15 years, he has softened now. He's a softer and kinder, gentler Jack to deal with than he was 10 years ago. But I'll also say this, Jack Leggett has never really, to me, crossed the line of unprofessional per se. But, after a loss in particular, he can be a tough cookie to crack. But Dan Radakovich said, we have to help Jack in some of his PR communication. He's incredibly competitive. Let's make sure we're using it the right way to get across the message better. As you guys know, there's 56 baseball games. Not all 56 are critical. Some are bigger than others from a PR perspective. Let's make sure we're prepared to do the right type of communication, whether in victory or defeat, after some of those really important games or series, and help Jack with that. End of quote. So they're going to maybe give him a more of a cooling off period after games, or again, this looks to me like it's definitely going to be some micromanaging. We asked Jack about some of those changes last night, and he gave the answer that you would expect. I'm going to keep those between Dan and me. I think we tweaked some things, and we're always looking to improve, and I'm not beyond that, and yada yada yada. You can go back and listen to that interview if you missed it last night. It's on our website, sportstalksc.com. But here, Dan Radakovich did go into specifics and really, pointed out, like, this is what he has to do. This is what we expect him to do. This is what he needs to do better. And I don't necessarily disagree with all of this. These suggestions. I really do question the rationale of doing this, though, because it just looks like you're kind of dressing down your Hall of Fame coach in public. That's what it looks like to me. That's the perception to me. If you don't think he can get the job done, then fire him. If you really thought that, and I don't think that would have been the right move, but move on. But if you have to do this, and you shouldn't fire him because he's a good coach, but I want to make these fans feel good. This is how you fracture a relationship with an AD. And again, Dan Radakovich, his mentor was Mike McGee at South Carolina, and this has shades of Mike McGee, who was known for his bristly personality and his icy relationship with a lot of the people he worked with and worked for him.
Yeah, 6 nights in a row. Stand by.
So Jack Leggett's got 4 things that he has to do. He has to hire a sports psychologist to work with the team. Has to have a council of players, a 4-man council of players, meet with them at least once a week. He has to go out and watch what some other programs do and learn from them. And he has to work on his image. This is what he has to do, according to Dan Radakovich. Again, this kind of stuff, and this is the kind of stuff, if you do it behind closed doors, can make a coach bristle, because coaches don't like to be told how to do their job, especially ones that have had a modicum of success, which Jack Leggett has had more than his share of. But when you go public with it and start telling everybody, oh yeah, this is what he's got to do. Let me explain what he has to do, and this is what he needs to work on. It would really irritate you. And again, I only make the Mike McGee reference because Dan Radakovich worked under Mike McGee. That was, the guy that he watched work, and Mike McGee ran off more than a couple of good people because of that. Eddie Fogler was an excellent basketball coach and didn't remain at South Carolina longer for no other reason than the AD had a terrible relationship with them for doing things, similar to this.
The other thing is, some simple adjustment that we don't need to know about, as you said, the cooling off period. Correct me if I'm wrong, the only major sport in college, and I know baseball is not a major sport at some colleges, but here in the South it is. Coaches in football, Spurrier goes to the locker room, cooling off period, goes in the interview room. Same with basketball. Baseball coaches are usually met right on the field after the game, and there is no cooling off period. So it's raw and unrehearsed, or they're not in a relaxed state at that point in time. So having a cooling off period, I can see that. Now the one I really that gets me is this one, and there may be some method to the madness, but I don't know. So I'll plead ignorant, and I'll give you my take. Sometimes the relationships between a team and a coach, the players, whatever is in that locker room stays in the locker room. Now, with this player council, this sounds like another attempt of having to know everything that goes on in the locker room. Because if you have a 4-player council, that means there will be a report on the council meeting. And who's going to see that report? Not only the coaching staff, but bingo, the AD. There's some things the AD doesn't need to know that goes on in the locker room with a coach and his players. In fact, the best teams we've seen, K-Mac, the players police themselves. And they have their little kangaroo courts or whatever in the locker room. So again, the big brother is peering in the locker room is how I see number 3. It may be method to the madness, but that's the one I
it's
put.
not that I disagree with some of the ideas and the changes. I just don't know why he needs to tell the public that he's going to make Jack Leggett have a 4-man council and they have to meet at minimum once a week, or that he has to go visit other programs. You could tell him that and say, that's what I want you to do, and Jack make sure he does it, but you don't have to tell everybody that he's doing that. I mean, just the way this whole thing just gets back to the way this whole thing was handled, in my opinion, from the top down was wrong. It was just completely wrong. And, when there's comments being made by Radakovich that are coming out during the ACC tournament, it turned into a distraction, and the AD could have quelled that distraction before the postseason, but didn't. And then after the postseason, it went on for a week when everybody was wondering if Jack Leggett was even going to have a job. And finally, a statement comes out yesterday, and then a small meeting with 3 reporters today where Radakovich gets into a lot of the details. I just don't like the way this went down. It doesn't seem like it was the best way possible. Maybe Jack Leggett's fine with it. Maybe Dan Radakovich. Obviously, he's fine with it. perhaps it'll all work out wonderfully. Clemson will be back on track, and everybody will be singing Kumbaya next year. But, man, this could just and the undercurrent is pretty rough. That's a pretty tough environment to work in, especially knowing Jack Leggett's personality. It's got to be difficult for him. Hey, play for your chance to win big with the Big $10 ticket instant game from the South Carolina Education Lottery. You could win up to $250,000.
Well, the question I have here, and it's just one I need for my edification, is according to the memo that was passed around, I thought, satisfying the needs of the media was not our number one priority. Yet and still, you find time to sit down with a few strategic members of the media so you can fire off your agenda.
Yeah, well, it's I will see how it plays out. We've made it very clear. Jack Leggett, to me, he should have never been questioning his job at that point. I don't think it was at that level yet, but certainly tweaking things and saying, hey, how do we get back to where we want to go? I get that, and that's the AD's job. I really, this is a completely different Clemson than the Clemson of 3 years ago, 4 years ago, certainly 10 years ago. They are changing at a warp speed up there right now. And, this kind of stuff happens, but it's just Clemson had a pretty good formula with how they dealt with people, how they dealt with coaches, the loyalty, the atmosphere. That is changing up there. The culture at Clemson is changing, whether it's going to be for the better and let them take that next step, or for the worse where they take a step back and get bit by this. That remains to be seen, but certainly there is undoubtedly a different culture being created at Clemson.
For lack
now.
of a better term, I thought the atmosphere was conducive to what it was. It's out in the open spaces of the country, and you had a family country feel to it.
Yeah, I mean, don't air your dirty laundry. I mean, it doesn't work just in sports. It's like your family. You don't bring that stuff out behind closed doors. But hey, it's out there now, and we've certainly spent some time discussing it, and we'll continue to follow that. One of the things that I like to do in the summer is read these Athlon guides. They're out now. Yeah, they're a bunch of dead trees. You're not going to get. They're never right, first of all. And I'm not saying that to insult these people. I could make one of these magazines and be wrong too. How many of them picked Missouri last year?
None of them.
Yeah. How many of them picked? How about Auburn in the BCS championship game? Anybody have that?
None of them picked that.
No.
I will give credit to one magazine, the Sporting News, which I thought was a little high. But the Sporting News last year picked South Carolina to finish third in the country. And I thought, wait a minute, that is much too high. But then I checked on the rankings at the end of the year, and darn, they didn't finish fourth.
Yeah. I mean, they find the blind squirrel finds the nut. There's no doubt about that. There's just no way. It's a crapshoot. But these magazines, first of all, they're good because we're in the dog days, and football's still far enough away where we don't know. We can't start breaking down X's and O's. We're not going to break down Texas A&M and South Carolina and Georgia Clemson, but you get a feel for what the teams have coming back and what the national perception is. Anyway, I thought I would quickly pass along what Athlon thinks about USC and Clemson. If you want the full Monty, you have to go out and do what everybody else does. Buy the magazines. Looks like the sticker price is $7.99 per. Mike Davis on the SEC Athlons for this region, and Vic Beasley, a.k.a. Vic Beasley.
And just a personal note,
on the ACC.
If you want to find those magazines, I guess you get them at your grocery store. At least here in the Columbia area.
We don't have a newsstand anymore.
I'm surprised because I'm one of those guys who I get in a routine, and I don't go all around town every day. But, on weekends, I find out that another one of my favorite bookstores is closed. So if you're looking for the magazine and looking for a bookstore or a newsstand near you, beware that they might be closed, and probably the best way to get those things at a grocery store, I guess.
All right, we're coming up on a hard break here, so I don't think I have time to get into all these. And it's going to be quick. I'm not going to go blow by blow with the entire top 25 and the predictions in the SEC and ACC, but I do want to tell you where they think USC and Clemson are going to finish in their respective conferences and their divisions, where they're going to go bowling, and where they have them ranked in their top 25. So we'll do that and pass along recruiting on the other side of this timeout.
Amazon Prime, you get that free 2-day shipping. You better ask somebody. They'll still have one on Forest Drive. Barnes & Noble. I wish like hell I was coaching a team on any level and they had a 4-player team council come in and tell me what was going on. Well, Coach, we didn't like the way you said, you sent Johnny home. He should have held up. See, that's the difference. Is kids these days, they're not like us. They'd love to be in that, have that opportunity. Oh, yeah, I'm going to tell Coach what's up. Back in our day, you knew better. You're killing the culture.
We read the Athlon preseason magazines, so you didn't have to. USC picked second in the SEC East behind Georgia. Athlon predicts the Gamecocks will finish 10-2 overall, 6-2 in the SEC. So all of their losses will be in conference. Certainly, they think one of them will probably be to Georgia. It would look like if they're picking Georgia to win the East. But they still have the Gamecocks in the Fiesta Bowl against Oregon. Now, that's not in the playoff. That's in the Fiesta Bowl against the Oregon Ducks. They have the Gamecocks ranked 9th in its preseason top 25. 6 players made the Athlon All-SEC team. Senior guard A.J. Cann, the only player to earn first-team honors. In fact, he's a first-team All-America on the Athlon guide. Running back Mike Davis and linebacker Sky Moore on the second team. Offensive lineman Corey Robinson and place kicker Elliott Fry are on the third team. And wide receiver Shaq Rowland, a fourth-team selection. Clemson was picked second in the ACC Atlantic Division behind that team from Tallahassee, Florida State. They predict the Tigers to finish with a 9-3 record, 7-1 in the ACC. So they think Florida State will be the only team that beats them in the ACC again, but they think the Tigers will finish with 2 losses. So obviously they believe Georgia in Athens will beat them in the opener, and South Carolina will beat them in the season finale, along with Florida State, unless they think, Georgia State or, one of those other non-conference teams is going to beat them. So you can deduce that. They predict the Tigers will be back in South Florida in the Orange Bowl against defending SEC champion Auburn. Auburn was picked 5th in their preseason poll.
But
Clemson was 21st.
Playoff.
Not in the playoff.
No.
Yeah, only the top 4 teams. In fact, the magazine's top 4, Florida State, Alabama, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. They picked Georgia to lose to Alabama in the SEC championship game, and Florida State to beat Virginia Tech in the ACC championship game. 2 Clemson players on the Athlon All-ACC squad, both defensive guys. Vic Beasley, who was an All-American as well, first team, and linebacker Stephon Anthony. Hard to argue with either one of those two. Defensive end Corey Crawford made third team.
It's interesting how much juice, and I think probably they got more juice out of their bowl victory than any other team, is Oklahoma, because of the way they handled Alabama. But that is a dangerous precedent to just look at a bowl game and say, well, because we've seen teams look good in a bowl game, and that next year, oops, kind of over-predicted on them. I think one of the things I found out, K-Mac, when I looked at the bowl landscape, I think a potential winner of second tier of bowls, if they play their cards right, is in Charlotte with the Belk Bowl. Because now that the renamed, I guess you could call it the Peach Chick-fil-A Bowl is now in the rotation, they don't have that natural bowl matchup that everybody loves, and that is ACC versus SEC, where the Peach Bowl probably the second tier bowl that always has a sellout. Now the Belk Bowl has inherited that matchup, and if they play their cards right in Charlotte, they could have a big extravaganza there, even with the playoff. Still a good solid second tier bowl can make your city look good, and that's what they have. I think they now have inherited the ACC SEC matchup. So a potential winner out of the second tier bowls may be the Belk Bowl going forward.
Let's jump into some recruiting. Kornblut not here, but recruiting never takes a day off on Sports Talk, as you know by now. Rising junior tight end J.C. Chalk committed to the Tigers today. First commitment for the 2016 class. Again, the grandson of Gene Stallings, Sweeney's old coach at Alabama. Chalk committing to the Tigers, participating in the camp. Is not going to take any other visits. He was going to head down to Auburn this week, but that's not going to happen. Duke, Arizona State, Colorado State, and Texas A&M were also involved with him. Defensive back Antonio Parks out of Reserve, Louisiana, is getting close on a decision, but he wants to take a few more visits before he finalizes things. All signs continue to point to Clemson, but Parks wants to make sure before he makes an announcement. But he's big on Clemson. They still lead. He does have Arizona at a close second. He's visiting Clemson in a couple of weeks, and that's when he's going to sit down and talk to the coaches. Some other schools that he'd like to visit, including Arizona, are Tennessee and East Carolina. Defensive back Rico Merriweather Jr. out of Augusta is looking for offers in South Carolina. He's showing his talents off at Clemson's camp this week and wants to impress the USC coaches as well. He arrived at Clemson Monday. He'll leave Wednesday, and he'll be at USC Saturday. He's been hearing from USC recruiter Everett Sands. He's optimistic about getting an offer from the Gamecocks. But still waiting right now. He's already camped at Georgia Tech, did that last week. Also wants to camp and plans to camp at Duke. Has an offer from Michigan State, also drawing interest from Minnesota, Indiana, Furman, Troy, Georgia Southern, and Western Carolina.
come on the show, stab you in the back as soon as we cut you off the air? I don't know. I don't recall. No, I like Jerry. He's a good dude.
And majority of my life in general, dedicating myself to the sport in this country and representing my country.
When Jurgen called you in and told you, did you have a feeling, an indication that it might play out this way?
No, quite the opposite, actually. Based on my performances leading up to camp, based on my preparation for the camp, based on my fitness, based on my workload, based on
Evidently, I'm old and overrated.
the way I trained and played in camp.
Always have been.
I not only thought
Everybody likes Dempsey now.
Looks like a couple of other recruiting notes I want to pass along. Big visit this weekend coming from offensive lineman Matthew Burrow out of Virginia. He's going to visit Clemson this weekend. And a basketball note, 6'4" Rajon Tucker. Corn's got his Twitter handle on here. If he wanted to make these even more difficult to read, now he's not even writing names out. He's just putting their Twitter handles. Rajon Tucker, who you can follow on Twitter at Rajon_Tucker24. Will be on an unofficial visit to Virginia Tech Friday. Clemson is also in the mix for him. If you want more, visit our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and you can check out lots of recruiting updated very frequently by Kornblut. Palmetto College, you want to get more out of your education? Palmetto College offers the quality of a 4-year education online. To find out more, visit palmettocollege.sc.edu. With Palmetto College, your future has no limits. NBA Finals last night, Pro. Goodness gracious. I mean, that was a basketball clinic in the first half by San Antonio. They had a few possessions that, you know, if you're a basketball purist, you just fall in love with. They had one possession where they had about 6 passes. I don't think the ball touched the floor. They worked it all the way around the perimeter, inside the lane, and then into a cutting Ginobili who laid it in. It was just beautiful. And people that knock the NBA, I mean, if you watch the Spurs in that first half and you say, this isn't a good quality of basketball, there's something wrong with you. That was impressive what they did last night.
Yeah, I mean, they took Miami out of the game, the crowd, everything, and just carved them up. The only thing, if I'm a Spurs fan, I would love to have that game in game 6 or 7, not game 3. But they've taken back the home court advantage, and that is interesting. I thought that was a big key. But can they keep it up? I don't think they themselves think they can shoot nearly 70% in the second half.
Well, that's a finals break. Nobody's ever done it before. And you knew even when they had that lead, I said, yeah, Miami's got to run. They're at home. Miami has a run, and they made a push. They got it within 7 there late in the third quarter, but San Antonio did what championship caliber teams do. They withstood that run and extended the lead back out and won by double digits going away. So that's a big win. Game 4 will be, let's see, we have Thursday night. We'll have a Thursday night matchup and then go from there. So we'll see how that plays out. Stanley Cup Finals could end tonight. The Rangers trying to stave off the sweep against the LA Kings.
And that's rough for the Rangers because what they lost the first 2 games out in LA in overtime, both games. Then suddenly you thought they'd come back home and they say, okay, for now we can even the series. But I think they're getting ready to give up the ghost tonight. I can see it.
Corn will be back tomorrow. The gang will be all back together. Thanks to Graham Pope behind the glass, all of you out there for listening and participating. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place here on Sports Talk. Have yourself a great one.